I'd like to call the Education Committee meeting to order and turn it over to Mr. Klein.
All right. So I'm going to talk first. I've been sending out in the board updates a few times this year so far, a little bit of information about our steel standard transition, which we're going to get to, but then also we've started to work on our ELA adoption process because we're looking at new programs for our K through 6 program, at least possibly K through 8. We haven't really had a fully articulated process, like a timeline with clear steps about how we were going to make those types of decisions and things like that. I've included those linked in some of the updates, but I just kind of wanted to talk about them and see if there were any questions in relation to that process, because it will be our first run on it, but this will hopefully be a consistent process that we'll take forward. It does have elements that are customizable though, because different content areas and different situations will require that. So the process is designed right now to take place over a year to 2 years with the ELA adoption process, because we feel like there's an urgent need. It's probably going to be the year-long process. So basically the way I formed it out was I start with the most important and final step of that, which is that the school board approves the adoption and purchase of whatever the new program is, which I have now put in at April. And I put it in at April because I figure if anything goes wrong along the way, we still have time in order to have those board meetings after that in order to come back again, because it absolutely has to be approved if we're going to move forward by June so that we can make those purchases and get those things over the summer and be prepared for the start of the year. So the prepare stage of the process at the beginning it's basically establishing the committee and establishing the priorities, and in that we have steps to use the district mission, vision, and goals, and to use data, like our data, to actually define what our needs are and why it is that we're looking to adopt a new program at all. So we will not be adopting a new program because it's just time or because we're just sick of what we have. We're going to be defining that initially right off the bat with what does our current program and what does our current curriculum not do that we need to have in there. And with the ELA, like I said, we have a sense of urgency because we do feel like that is there right now, that we purchased a program at the beginning of the shift to the Common Core standards that really does not fulfill in that inception of it all of the standards and all of the needs, particularly as it comes to writing and some of the beginning reading skills. So we did, with our last data day, have the teachers look at data, and then they were sent from me a survey where they were asked to collect all that information and define what that data revealed about what our needs were, which did come down to like a lot of foundational skills at Peters, a lot of writing skills as we move up through Slatington Elementary School, and a lot of emphasis on nonfiction. So there is still a lot of fiction in these books, and the core standards really have shifted to students being able to think critically about nonfiction. So we did that part, and so now we're in the process of using those needs and priorities to narrow down all that's out there. The entryway for any consideration is that it meets whatever the criteria and entry standards are of an independent organization. So right now I'm using Ed Reports, which is nationally used in order to identify are all standards covered within the program, and then is it usable? Is it actually usable? Like, do teachers have the ability to use this to teach? And so the only things that made it through are those. There's about 6 to 8 that meet those criteria and sort of fall within things that we would consider. Right now, we're thinking there's about 4 that we'd like to bring forward, form a committee, and begin looking at. And then the next phase, study, has us narrowing those down. I'm hoping to 2, maybe to 3. And then we would move forward with the process of meeting with representatives from the companies in order for them to give us a full overview of them. And then we'll decide between 3 possible avenues to actually investigate the materials as a committee. One being book study, and that's what it sounds like, really, really just looking at and talking about the text themselves, the way lessons are structured, but nothing live, nothing's happening there, right? It's a lot of talking and thinking. Another one is sort of a PLC guide format, which would include the committee sort of giving practice lessons to each other, right? So with students acting as teachers, kind of like we do oftentimes with the interview process, that's a little bit faster than the final, which would be I'm calling it a field test or a sort of a pilot test. In the old days we gave full pilots, sometimes they were a semester, a year. This might be less than that, but it would actually include interaction between teachers and students. So students would be teaching a unit or so within there. We would collect information based on that from whatever is left of our options, and then we would use that as well. So those can be adjusted based on timeline. I'd really like to, even though we're working on the year-long timeline, still have a field test in there this year, and I think we can do it. I think if we can get that narrowed down, particularly to 2 options, I think we can do it. So after we go through all of that, that committee then makes a decision and sort of decides on a launch, and then also develops any implementation standards and implementation protocols that we may need as we move into the year in order to make sure that we have that next phase in place. Adopt a program and don't have a plan to use it, and obviously it's not going to be the program that we want it to be. I'm looking to, again, a couple of models by which decisions can be made, one of which is fairly autocratic. The administrators make a decision, right, if we have to. The other is, majority wins, right? The committee, everyone votes, 5 to 6 vote. Doesn't matter about the other 5, 6 people said it. I'd like to work through a process that actually develops consensus. So I'd really like it to be, in the end, that whether I like this or not, right? Like, we've had enough conversation about the merits of all things that I can accept the decision and support the decision, recognize that, this is the direction we're moving in. So I can share that chart out again so that you can see that. Like I said, this will be our first run through on it. It outlines all the times for this particular implementation, and right now I am working on one for science as well.
Mr. Pine, before you open it up to questions, could I just ask that you put a framework of your notes that you just shared out, drop them into here?
Sure.
Because there's no way I was keeping up with that.
Sure. I didn't even use them. I've got them written here, and I don't think I looked down once, so.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sure. Okay, so are there any questions about that process, I guess?
Is there any way the process can be speeded up?
I mean, yes. I mean, like I said, like the way that it was designed was so that we had options at a couple of stages to, like I said, when we get to like the actual decision piece, like and looking at the programs, a book study, we could pull teachers out of classes a couple of days. We could probably do that in a really intensive way, very fast. I think that getting to the part where we have teachers interacting with it with students, I think that's probably gonna be important for a number of our adoptions, maybe not every single time, but I could say if we look at the adoption of the science, the biology textbook at the high school, I mean, that was just a couple of months. That didn't follow this, but we probably could have done something like this very fast. It's a small department, it's one subject. ELA is it's a big one. Like it's not only big in terms of importance, but it's a lot of hands are on it, and I think if we're really going to try and get buy-in and kind of have a really transparent process, that I would hate to shortcut it more than a full school year to do that. Yeah.
I would be cautious of sacrificing consensus and equality for speed.
Yeah, and I will say in developing this, I even felt like with the ELA one, I would like to have more time. Like I would like to have more time to do that, but I do understand that it was on me to figure out like how do we do this as quickly as possible and have like a meaningful evaluation process.
I just feel like we're stretching things out. That's my perspective from like when are we going to see the nuts and bolts and the results for the
Well, and I will keep this committee and the school board up to date as we move through. Like I said, there is a committee for the process, and we have checkpoints along the way to gather information and also communicate with the rest of the faculty too. So those pieces are in there in order to make sure that what's going on. But the earliest we'd be able to adopt a new program at this point anyway, I mean, probably shouldn't be before the 24-25 school year. So I think that backtracking from that board meeting in my mind, I think we'll get there. We'll be in good shape. Yeah.
I'm just looking to see if there's anything we can do now to help the kids along. That's all.
And we are. I mean, right now we are looking at the areas that are weaknesses to figure out what to do now. And we'll be patching things together. I do have confidence right now with the programs that we're looking at that we would be well positioned to know that we are covering everything at the level that is currently expected, right? And I also have some hope that a lot of the programs, I think they organize things in a way that it's just very logical, in a way that the old textbooks weren't, where they just dropped a lot of stuff in there. So, yeah.
Thank you.
So maybe mention this, and I was late. What years are we talking about? It says elementary, K to 6?
So right now, K to 6, but I've
Okay.
been having some initial conversations about possibly including 7 and 8 there. And one of the reasons for that is that, and I don't know if anyone was here then, when we adopted Wonders, our 6th grade actually ended up getting pulled into using My Perspectives, which was at the middle school. And we actually found again now that a lot of the programs run K to 5, well, we're K to 2 and 3 to 5, but generally K to 5, and then 6 to 8 as middle school programs. And not having that continuity, I feel like might be an issue. So
Well, that was going to be my next question. So we're looking at programs in the elementary school. Obviously, it's got to be a spiraling curriculum, which should reach high school eventually.
Yes.
All right, so while we're investing, any dollars or time in the programs we're choosing, let's take note that it's going to have some impact, because we're rewriting curriculum now up at the high school that, in years to come, if this does what we want it to do, we're going to be impacting those things as well going
Absolutely.
forward. And I hope we do.
Yes,
I mean, that's a
absolutely.
positive.
And I mean, that's been a conversation over the past 3 years. Well, we want to change this program, so why are we writing curriculum? And my attitude about it has been, well, we have to get a system in place one way or the other, right?
Right.
We can't be looking forward and saying 2 years we're in a new program. So the high school, we have been, and we've completed quite a bit of curriculum
Right.
based on what they're currently doing. That's been standards audited. And again, we keep doing what we can with what we have. But as we do have these adoptions come up, it's going to impact what happens up there. I mean,
Right.
Hopefully in a really, really good way. And
Yeah, I'm familiar with an ELA program called Springboard. It's K to 12, and the idea behind Springboard is to get our kids to take AP classes at the high school level.
Yes.
And that was the whole incentive behind it. I wasn't there through the whole fruition of it to see where that's gone, but I don't know what programs you're looking at.
At least 2 of them do have K to 12 curriculum. They
Okay.
run K to 12.
Alright.
So right now, like I said, I know that we're looking at elementary because that is. a
I
real
understand, you gotta
concern.
start at the basement.
A couple of them though. I was a high school English teacher. I'm looking at the high school ones, and I would send me back to the classroom, like really well organized, interesting units of study. That so
Okay.
yeah, no, definitely. Any other questions? So I would hope, if not by next month, it's October, just by the December meeting, I should definitely have an update on that narrowing process, because we'll be going through that process and we'll be selecting what we're really going to look at. And I'm going to say too, I know particularly ELA programs, they can be controversial, right? A lot comes up with ELA programs. It's a lot of readings from a lot of things. The one thing I found with a lot of the ones that we're looking at is they're very modular, right? We get to make curricular decisions every step of the way. A couple of them don't even come with textbooks per se, right? Like they come with things, so it is all broken out into all of these options. Please stay updated, ask questions, be a part of the conversation, and I'll keep asking you to.
I think we need to realize too, though, that we're not going to see, these results tomorrow, or even next year. Hopefully 3 years from now, we start turning that corner and really starting to see an upswing with what work we're doing. But, I know everybody wants it to happen tomorrow, and I'm a realist. I understand what it's going to take. So, but we got to start somewhere, and I like what you're saying. If we're going to start, let's start. Let's not push the button the next year if we do a lot of the work now, so it's implemented next year.
Sure. Yeah, and I will say that some of the programs, there are going to be pain points, and it's just because it is so different. The way that they're designed is so different, focused on student selection, focused on, than what we're used to. And I think any teacher would tell you it's great, but it's gonna be tough.
Understand.
So I look forward to supporting that. So speaking of training things up this year, to make sure that we're ready when it actually comes. I'm going to actually ask Mrs. Wilder to talk about the steel standards. So I know I've talked about these, but I figure it's time to get her in front of you and have her talk to you about it. Oh, the IXL visit.
Yep.
Yeah, if I can just, the agenda item, the IXL visit. So they had to cancel last minute. Just to give you context, this was exciting. IXL is an international company. Their program is in 2 out of 4 schools in the country. I don't know why they say 2 out of 4 instead of 1 out of 2, but 2 out of 4 schools across the country. And, one of the creators and the current chief operating officer of the program is actually coming to do a conference in Bridgewater and has heard about like what we're doing with IXL here, and she makes attempts when she visits new places to find schools to go visit to see their implementation. And so I mean, we were very excited and flattered that what we're doing here was something she wanted to come and talk to us about. Unfortunately, I'm sure as a chief operating officer's life is busy, she had to cancel at the last minute. So yeah. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. So Mr. Link will bring up Gabby's slides.
Is this what we're looking at here?
Oh no, that's me. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Hers. Do you not have?
Oh, hold on. No, I have them. I'm just looking to open. And got it. Here you go, Ms. Wilder.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So my name is Gabriela Wilder. I'm a science teacher at Northern Lehigh High School. This year I'm also working as the science instructional coach as well, with a focus on the STEEL standards implementation, which is a science standards that Pennsylvania is moving to in the upcoming school year. And STEEL stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Environmental Literacy, and Sustainability. And where Pennsylvania differs from NGSS, if anybody has experience with the next generation science standards, is we have the environmental literacy and sustainability component because we are an agricultural state. So on the next slide, what I'm currently working on or have been currently working on for the last month is a look at different curriculum, reviewing what we currently have K-12, and I'm still in the process of gathering those materials from kindergarten through 12th grade teachers for the science curriculums. And then reviewing those resources for where they already might fit into STEELs and NGSS and where we have room for improvement. And then additionally, I'm looking for 3 options for K-12 and K-6, whatever that might be, K-8, for curriculum updating for our science programs. My goal with that is NGSS and STEELs alignment. For every NGSS standard, there's a STEEL standard, so there's correlation there. NGSS is just the nationwide standards, STEELs is Pennsylvania. And then my goal here for that is to create fluidity, like you were talking about for ELA, between elementary, middle, and high, so that by the time students are diversified in science at the high school level, they've already had a strong foundation in the elementary and middle school levels. In addition, like I said, I'm working on coaching in the science classrooms, obviously specific to science. And then what I've currently already done is met with some principals to talk about the expectations of these standards in their classroom, kind of create a common goal for what we all expect to see out of this. And the biggest change with our STEEL standards is going to be a shift in the way that we approach science from like rote memorization to hands-on, phenomena-based, skills-based learning. And that was a common goal that we all have to see at the end of our STEELs transition. So shifting into that, the shift in science comes in 3 different parts. So we're looking at something called phenomena-based inquiry, which is not a new concept, and many teachers already do this without being called phenomena-based inquiry. You use a real-world application, relate your units back to it, and that's where your starting point comes from. Essential questions, all of that is your phenomena-based inquiry. And it anchors your unit of study. From that, you have a change in the classroom environment of a teacher just disseminating information of science to students figuring out how or why something works. It should be hands-on and student-led. We're putting that accountability back on the students, and teachers are facilitating that learning. And then our performance expectations are what we're measuring here rather than rote memorization. So we're no longer trying to worry about a test where we know what every single vocab word means, but why is that vocab word important? What does it mean in the human body or for physical science or chemistry? What is the purpose of it? And in that performance expectation, there are practices that students should be able to complete by the end of each school year, which is where our standards performance expectation comes from. And then lastly, in supporting this shift, I am a support system for these teachers. Science in the elementary level is like not the biggest thing in college curriculum, so a lot of teachers don't feel confident in their scientific abilities even though everybody has it. My job is to pull that confidence out, let them be a facilitator in the classroom. One of the elementary teachers called it controlled chaos. Sometimes that can be scary, but that's how students learn, especially at that young of a level. So my job is to be that support there to show them that they can do it and it is possible, and all students can learn science no matter how young they are. And lastly, with that confidence building, like I said, by the end of this, all of our teachers should be confident in their shift to SEAL standards, phenomena-based inquiry, and student-led inquiry.
Awesome.
Sorry, I spoke really fast. I was a little
I'm
nervous.
super excited for this. This sounds like it's going to be really beneficial to the students. The hands-on component alone is 100%.
I am too. I'm very excited.
I hope we see a lot of progress in these kids in the sciences. That would be great.
Yes, absolutely. And with that, I know sometimes we can get worried about how this might look, but the shift is across the board nationwide, so we're just jumping on board with everyone else.
Awesome.
It's going to be a shift for some staff members as well, because they're not used to giving up that control, you know, and understanding that chaos is learning, right? Obviously, we're using a lot of STEAM concepts in the STEEL concept, so they go hand in hand. So this is the way every subject should be taught, to be quite honest with you. So.
On that note, actually, recently I found social studies curriculum that's inquiry-based as well. I really do think inquiry-based learning and this type of approach to learning is taking a hold across curricular areas. And actually, that goes back to the Common Core and math and ELA really taking that approach more and more, making students the thinkers, right? Like the mathematicians, the scientists, things like that. So.
Yeah, I mean, there is a place and time for memorization of facts and vocab words. I mean, that's still part of it, but the application of it and the use of it, you know, knowing it is one thing, but being able to incorporate it into something is a totally different learning experience. I'm looking forward to seeing that as well. So.
Mr. Pine, can you please link Ms. Wilder's presentation
Sure thing.
to there? Thank you. In a PDF format, please.
Yes.
And then I would just like to take a second to say thank you, Ms. Wilder. That was an excellent presentation, and it makes me so happy and proud as a superintendent to see some of our newer staff members getting up, taking leadership roles, presenting to our school board like this. So kudos to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks.
I just want to add, she's been doing an amazing job. I mean, everything I mention is something we should be thinking about. She comes to me with like a full workup and prototype. I really want to say, I mean, it was a great opportunity that we could do this year. Not every district has this opportunity to support teachers in this way through this, so I'm really excited about where we are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll transition over to Mr. Hauser.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Thank you, everybody. Good evening. I just wanted to provide the board a brief update this evening on the new middle school schedule. About 2 years ago, we started the process of revising that schedule and implemented a new schedule this year with a bunch of goals, but some key ones that I think are worthy of an update. One of our goals was to reduce the class sizes that we were offering while not hiring additional staff, and I felt that could be done just through some organizational strategies in the schedule. We were able to do that depending on the subject area by about 4 to 5 kids per class. So we are operating the middle school with an average class size of 16. That does not include special education classes, which might have smaller amounts of kids in there by design. Those would skew the numbers. If I throw those numbers in, the average comes a little bit lower. We do have a couple exceptions. Typically, there's always one kind of bigger class, we call it a blip class, that comes through. And that's because we get some kids that are very mathematically minded, and we have an advanced section which can creep upwards of 25 to 28 students, so they'll kind of follow one another sometimes. So that can go through the schedule, but by and large, we're operating at 16 students per class, which is excellent. As many of you know, the middle school did become a CFES School of Distinction this year. We have worked in time in our schedule to kind of enhance our CFES programming, what we call the Bulldogs Inspire program, get that to the next level. We've also been nominated as a Distinguished Student Assistance Program school across the state of Pennsylvania. So we're very excited to see where that goes. We'll find out if we won in February. However, I bring that up because as part of our schedule, we're able to build in not just our regular meeting times, but also some work periods for the members of those teams to really take their student support services to the next level. They have the training, they didn't always have the time to implement that with as many students as possible, so we really maximize their minutes. And one thing I'm very excited to see up and rolling, we did build in enrichment and remediation time into our schedule that is standalone from the actual classes themselves. So we're using a couple different data sources to determine where kids are placed. We started the year looking at last year's PSSA scores, and we're going to modify their placements as we get more IXL numbers in as the year goes on. So we are running some ELA and math remediation. Saw some really good stuff in there in my observations, things that might not always, again, see as much time as needed. For example, I walked into a math teacher's class 2 weeks ago, just saw some basic arithmetic stuff, just some stuff that gets rusty, working with decimals and fractions and long division, things that we all know how to do, but it's going to take us a little bit to process it because it might have been a while. So polishing up some skills that are foundational, which was good, and the kids were getting it and things were clicking. I have another teacher who's teaching math through games and getting kids who are really maybe struggling with some concepts through some game playing to up their scores in those concepts, which was nice. We're also doing enrichment classes. I'll piggyback on science here, some science standards that might be they look like they're from lower grade levels, but that's because the 8th grade science PSSA is set up to be comprehensive from 4th grade onward. So there's a lot of different stuff in there that needs review that is not always part of what we offer. 7th grade we offer life science, 8th grade we offer earth and space, and it's beholden on the teachers to review things. So we're seeing not only some review of some concepts, but also some enhancement. So for example, I saw in science enrichment about a week ago, students took pizza boxes and built functioning ovens, and they were able to identify properties of heat and energy transfer to bake a brownie in a pizza box in class. And it was edible and delicious. I may or may not have 2 or 3 of them. All right? But we also looked at things like density calculations with different liquids, stuff that they might not normally get to help with their science literacy. So, and one more thing I'm very excited to see, we're having our special education teachers sometimes step out of their normal bubble where, yes, they will work with their IEP students, and we have copious more minutes to do that in the new schedule. But we're also getting them to stretch their legs a little bit. And for example, one IEP teacher is teaching an advanced reading enrichment right now for students who need a push, but in the other direction to get more advanced. And I walked in there about 2 weeks ago, and that teacher was doing reading literacy that was 2 grade levels ahead, so about a 10th grade reading level with our 8th grade students, and really pushing them to think critically about what they were reading. So I share all that to say we're maximizing our minutes at the middle school. We've had some hiccups along the way. We have a couple of things that we need to smooth out, I think, as the year goes on, as you do with anything new, but we have those, I think, kind of planned out for our second quarter. But so far, I'm very pleased with where the schedule is going and where it hopefully will take us. So at this point, I'll take any questions from anyone. Chad?
No real questions. I just wanted to say I heard a lot of good things from teachers and students. I think people are really happy with how Inspire is really just morphing on its own. So kudos to you guys and everyone who's been running that. Good job. Secondly, if you ever need a independent third-party quality control person for those brownies, phone's on.
I'll add that, Mr. Griffin, so I'm going to speak up.
David, sounds awesome. Like, I mean, you're getting the kids involved, and that's the key part, you know?
We're getting a lot of, what I also like seeing is we're getting more and more ideas sparked from faculty. Here's another example. Mr. Weber is doing gifted education in the building this year, and what I'm seeing from Mr. Weber's gifted students is exemplary. He's revitalized our greenhouse at the middle school. We actually have a banana tree growing in the middle school. So Mr. Chrisman, I hope like some banana bread is forthcoming. I'll give you a call. Okay. But we have like, you have the hydroponic tower going in there. And he sent me some pictures today of some stuff the kids were doing with the idea that we're going to transplant some of that into our courtyard maybe. We also have kids, one of the groups identified themselves as being more hands-on kids, so they're actually helping with some of the courtyard improvement projects and getting some ideas. So it's really coming together nicely. So.
Great job, Mr. Hauser, honestly. The transformation of the middle school from where we were, even when I started on the board, to where we are now, under your leadership is outstanding. I'll say it as a former middle school principal for many years. I will tell you, outstanding work.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Very well said. Mr. Hauser, thank you. And, I would say right now our middle school is probably quickly on track to the point where I may come back and say we need to start looking at the blue ribbon school
I agree.
process.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah. So please keep up the great work, you and your team, and thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you, Dr. Matt. Appreciate it.
Before we close, I'm going to go back to our steel standards. Mrs. Wilder, I want, so as we're transforming, our science program, and of course the board is all about budget, all right? So in your estimation, and I'm not looking for a number, what do you see what needs are we going to have curriculum-wise to make that change occur smoother?
So I think in terms of like what I'm seeing right now, what our curriculum is, I'm limited in answering that only because I'm trying to look, like I said before, for a curriculum that can reach us, preferably K through 8, like you were talking about for ELA. If we can get that fluidity for all of our elementary through middle school, I'm waiting for salespeople to contact me back about trials, pricing quotes, and things like that. But I do think, like in terms of like text curriculum for that fluidity, that would be helpful. And then I know a lot of the teachers at the elementary level are concerned with consumables.
Right.
That is one of the largest hindrances to hands-on inquiry-based learning, because those are things you need to rebuy every year because you're going through them. There are ways to make sure that that's affordable and within budget. And there's also programs that have comprehensive lists of what that would need and pricing quotes for that.
I'm not saying this in a negative way. I'm just saying it's something we need to prepare for.
Yeah,
I mean, it sounds exciting, but it comes with a cost.
Absolutely.
So I want to make sure that we are aware of that, because I know personally there's a cost.
Absolutely.
And that we're ready for that.
I think just keeping in mind that giving teachers access to those consumables at the lower level is definitely something that's been a common thread for me to hear with faculty down there.
Good. Well, you have my support, I'll tell you that.
Thank you.
That's an ongoing yearly cost too, because years ago we had Sciences Elementary, and it's the same thing she's talking about, and you can't do it if you don't have the materials to replace it.
Agreed.
And that's where we failed last time.
Now, that's why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah.
I don't want it to fail. Obviously it comes with a price tag, so we need to make sure that we're aware of that.
I think those things need to be made a priority.
Agreed.
Because it is for the students.
Yeah.
That's what they're here to do. They're here
That's
to learn.
exactly what I'm saying. So
Absolutely.
I said I support it.
It's a need, not a want.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Would you like to close, or would you like?
Rhonda, you open, you can close.
Okay, the education committee meeting is now adjourned.
We're going to transition into our policy committee meeting, and this evening you'll see that we only have one policy, and Mrs. Maltors is going to walk us through the proposed changes to that, and kind of why we have to do it.
So this is policy for GASB statements 38, 87, and 96. GASB 34 we've had for a while. That is just your fixed assets and what you are going to put on as the total price dollar value of that to become a fixed asset of the district. We are recommending raising that from $2,500 to $5,000, and that was under the recommendation of our auditor, and that $2,500 threshold is so low anymore that we need to raise it up to $5,000. So that we're raising the $5,000, that is in the policy. The other two are two new regulations. GASB 87 was probably about 2 years ago. That's our lease, has to do with leases. So we lease our printers, we lease our copiers. GASB 87 says that you have to now amortize those leases based on dollar values according to the GASB regulations. So this is putting that regulation in there and saying we are setting that threshold at $5,000 as well. So any lease agreement that is over $5,000, they have to amortize. Lastly, this year came the SBITAs. I love saying that word. So SBITA is subscription-based informational technology arrangements. So basically it is, I'm on page 3. Yeah, right in there. So, so what that is it's a lot of our like online learning programs will get into a lease for 4 years or 3 years. They now, if depending upon that lease, when they look at it, they will end up saying whether they need to amortize that over the years as a lease payment that we have to pay out. So we are setting that amortization at $20,000. So if it is $20,000 in one single year, they have to do it. Or if it's over $20,000 over a number of years, it has to. If it is $20,000 in like 2 years and it actually out to be like $10,000 a year, it doesn't meet that $20,000 threshold. So it's all in GASB regulations and the amortization of that, and we wanted to get the board policy out here, and it is a requirement based on GASB regulations that we have this policy.
So then I'm hearing the committee supports this policy going to first
Yes.
reading? Okay, thank you.
Can I just make one statement too? And we're doing a lot of evolving and revolving, just like the curriculum is. And when we started our policy committee meetings 2 years ago, we used to, read that whole policy, and people were like, I don't want to be here for 14 hours while you do that. So then we cut it back, and we only had the bullet points, and then people were saying, oh, I didn't really see the changes, I only got the bullet points. So what we're doing now, you're going to get your bullet points on here, you'll get a copy of this when they send out the agenda. So if you want to take the time to review that policy and go over it, you can. If you don't, it's on you. But hopefully this will be a compromise that'll keep everybody happy. And Sherry did a nice job tonight of hitting the bullet points, going through, didn't read it, and got through a long policy in a couple minutes. So thank you. And I'll shut up now. No.
And I will say all of that time and work over the past couple of years has paid off, because for the first time, which I think the first time since I've been here, we are now exactly where the Policy News Network releases say we should be. In other words, we're caught up with our policies. So that's, all that work has come to fruition, yeah. Okay. And that concludes our policy committee. If nobody objects, we'll transition to technology, buildings, and grounds. And Mr. Dissler.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So we will turn it over to Greg for the grounds and testing.
Welcome, everyone. Last Buildings and Grounds meeting, we talked about going out for bids for a used police car and a used passenger van. And we also talked about pricing for new vehicles. So we went through the required bidding process, advertised in the newspaper for 3 consecutive weeks, and we did not receive any used bids for a passenger van. we did receive one bid from Rensselaer's for a used 2019 Chevy Blazer. The cost of that Blazer is $33,000. That was the bid price. That Blazer is not upfitted to be a police car and would require $8,000 to $10,000 more for the upfittings to add the light bar, the console, the laptop rack, the cage in the car. So everything you see in a police car is included in that $8,000 to $10,000. So it's $33,000 for a used Chevy Blazer. CoStar's pricing for a brand new police car, it would be,
Just point out real quick, I'm not sure if you said this, but that used vehicle, the bid that we actually did receive comes with over 40,000 miles on it as well.
yes, correct. A new police car through CoStar's, and I worked with Frederick Chevy in Lebanon. The cost with the upfittings for a brand new 2023 Traverse is $40,750.19. So that's a complete upfitted brand new 2023 Traverse. For a 10-passenger van, it would be a 2024 Chevy Express through CoStar's is $55,341, and that vehicle would not be available until late summer if we would choose to go that route. And he suggested, while I was working with them, that a lot of districts are now purchasing an 8-passenger Traverse, a brand new Traverse through the CoStar's is $32,000. Some of the advantages of the 8-passenger that he shared with me that was a good insight, because he's doing this all the time. Anyone can drive the Chevy Traverse. The 10-passenger van, it's going to be a bigger vehicle. It's not like a minivan, it's a bigger, like, work van. I'm going to call it a work van, but it would be a passenger van. It's 10-passenger, and if we were to have such a vehicle insured through the district, it's going to require being registered or treated as though it's a school vehicle or a school bus. So it's going to require more frequent inspections, it's going to require a state police inspection, and requires a driver to have physicals. So that van would require more on us to have one of those in place for drivers.
Greg, when you say physicals, we're not talking about someone then who would have to have a CDL though for that, are we?
I wouldn't say, so I think you have to go through the same school bus training, but you're not getting a CDL.
Isn't it just a medical card?
So that,
I'm not sure, maybe Sherry can shed a little more light on that. She had that.
Yes, so they still have to take a normal test, but it's not the CDL driving test. They then will get a driver's card for being a licensed bus driver. They have to get the yearly physical. They have to, the vans would have to be inspected yearly based on state police will come and have to actually inspect the vehicles. Basically, Robin, it's everything that van drivers did over at the IU. It would be the same thing, because we would actually be a van, a bus, because it has 10 or more passengers on it. So that qualify it as a van, as a bus vehicle. You also can't say, I want to buy a 12-passenger or 15-passenger van, and I'm going to take 5 seats out, and I'm going to make it a 9-passenger van. That negates it, because what that van is earmarked for and tagged as, that's what that van is. So if that van is a 15-passenger van, no matter if you take it, that's still a 15-passenger van and must follow the bus laws.
the only problem with having that type of van and having those stipulations, even if it's not a CDL, it eliminates who is going to be able to use it.
Correct.
Where if a teacher was going on a field trip or something with 5 or 6 kids, let's just say, he or she probably would not want to go through all of that
Correct.
just to drive maybe once a year. So I think that would be a hindrance to us to go that direction. That's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm
Agreed.
glad it's not a CDL, but I think it's still a hindrance to us.
Agreed.
I think these are both no-brainers. I mean, if we can buy a new car cheaper than a used one, why wouldn't you? You know, and the advantages of the 8-passenger, I think, have been more than noted as opposed to the 10, unless I'm missing something here. You're laughing, I am. Okay, go ahead, so.
I'm not laughing.
Oh, I thought you were laughing at me.
No. I'm right there with you.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
we're right there with you.
I would like to maybe take the recommendation one step further administratively.
Okay.
Administratively, we fully recommend the Traverse with upfitting for the additional police vehicle. I agree with you. Brand new vehicle, upfitting is actually coming in, I think, less than if we were to buy a used vehicle with mileage plus upfitting, and this one would come with a full warranty on it. I'm seeing a brand new Chevy Express van for $55,000 plus, which we wouldn't be able to have delivered until sometime in the summer, and then 2 Traverses for $32,000 brand new. I'm actually recommending to the board that we buy 2 Traverses not for the police department, so that we have in-house for teachers to use, for our clubs that range anywhere from 5 to 10 people in them. If we would need to send out 2 vehicles, we can do that, or if we would have 2 small clubs scheduled to do something on the same day, what's so cool about manufacturing plus a high school debate is going to a competition. It's more than buying one large capacity van, but I would recommend that we buy ultimately 3 Traverses, one dedicated for a police vehicle, and then 2 dedicated for field trips and other and activities like that.
For the Traverses, are they 4x4?
They're all the Traverses are all-wheel drive.
And how many police cars do we currently have? Did we say 2?
We have 2. We have the Dodge Charger car, and then we have the Ford Edge.
Okay, so we have one for like basically this campus here and then one for over at Peters.
Actually, they're both primarily on this campus.
Okay.
I would like to see, honestly, 2 of them on this campus and 1 out at Peters. 1 for visibility out at Peters, but also in case the Peters police officer would ever need to come to this campus in an emergency situation quickly.
And are police officers able to make arrests, or are they not qualified to do that?
They have the full power of arrest within our jurisdiction, which is our buildings, our grounds, and our vehicles.
And are they allowed to implement violations for parking issues?
Yes.
And for...
Again, on our campus, yeah.
Like running the stop signs and things like that? Okay.
Yes, they're allowed to issue
So when we're
those
upfitting
citations.
them, we're upfitting them with things like what?
So they would have the lights, the sirens, they would have the police center console, which is able, if they need to, they can hook their laptop into there. It also has a lockbox in it. And I believe they also come with the long gun mounts. And then we're requesting that we have a second vehicle, although a second vehicle that has what we call the cage in it. Our current one with the cage is a full cage. For this one, we're probably recommending doing a half cage. So the second seat, half of that seat would be the secure seat. And they are all-wheel drive.
And how much time do they spend in these vehicles?
I don't know how much time, but I can tell you that mileage-wise, we're looking at about 1,500 miles a year. Because it's basically patrolling this campus and
Right.
driving back and forth to
So
Peters.
it's really not a lot of use. And what is the justification for us to do another vehicle? I'm just trying to, if they don't have a lot of time spent in these vehicles, why are we?
Because, again, for the visibility of out on the campuses, it was actually a recommendation from one of our threat assessments. We do use the one that doesn't have a cage in it and looks more of just like a like a traditional SUV with they call it the ghost lettering on it. It does have the lights, but it's the ghost lights. They're not the top mount. We actually use that sometimes for transporting students, families for police matters. They also use that vehicle for doing home visits. It's just, we don't want to go to someone's house with a fully equipped police vehicle.
How are we managing it now?
So right now, Chief Jones uses the Ford Edge, and then primarily Officer Nicosia uses the white Charger.
So if the third police officer needed to use it, he would just get permission?
He would get permission, yeah. I would like to see us be able to have one out at Peters primarily, for the reasons that I already shared.
Is this something that we can table for now, and maybe bring up in the next, not this coming board meeting, but the next one? Is this urgent? Because I'm a little concerned about some of the other things that are coming up with expenses, and I'm just trying to determine if this is a want or a need.
I'm gonna answer that with it is a need, but I think we can, if we need to delay a vote on it, I'll look to the committee to give us direction on that. I don't know, the only other thing is, Mr. Durr, I don't know how long the quotes are good for.
I just want more information with some of the other things that are gonna come up, so.
Real quick while he's looking that up, I know this is kind of a stretch. I know you said our officers have jurisdiction within our property. Now, does that also extend, like, when buses are out dropping kids off, do they have the
Portal to portal.
yes, like if they're following a bus
Yes.
and someone runs the thing, do they have the municipals?
So right now, what they would do is contact the, like Slatington PD or Walnut D or PSP, but they can absolutely follow until the jurisdiction of where the moving violation occurred is on site.
Okay.
But in that case, those jurisdictions would do the actual citation or arrest, and our officers would play a supporting role. That's how our MOU is written with all the local police departments. However, if there was, let's say, and this has happened here, a couple of winters ago, a vehicle slid into the back of our bus. Our officer needed our vehicle to go respond to check on the welfare of our children on the bus at that time, because they do have, if there was some sort of altercation or legal infraction on a bus, like Slatington PD wouldn't touch it then, it would be our police officers.
Yeah, I know sometimes it can be a gray area. I was just kind of curious how that.
It even gets a little gray sometimes with the actual bus stops themselves.
I was just gonna say that, we drop kids off, there's a fight that occurs right there. Where do we fall in that?
Yeah.
So, some people believe that falls under portal to
Right.
portal. The legal advice back to me is actually that the municipal jurisdiction would have the authority to cite if there was a citation warranted, if it was like out on the street but just off the bus stop type of thing. So that's the way it's most recently being explained to me by law enforcement. I know years ago it used to be, well, that's portal to portal, so we could discipline or we could arrest if we needed to. So yeah.
Yeah, because the situation that happened to me personally now 10 years ago, a young lady was walking off the bus to her home. Two boys attempted to assault her. I mean, physically, sexually. And our officers were involved because it was portal to portal. Now, we were supported by the municipality as well, but we were the ones who filed the charges.
Okay.
So that's why I'm asking.
So that may have changed. I'm not
It
sure.
might-
I know
might have.
most
It's a while
recently it
ago.
was,
Mhm.
the municipal law enforcement would address that. My message to all of you is we have very good working relationships with Slatington
Sure.
PD, Walnut Fork PD, and PSP. And at the end of the day, we're going to work through it and just make sure that everybody needs to be held accountable.
I then have some questions regarding the, taking to events and stuff like teachers and would it be for coaches as well? Or how do
So
we draw a line?
an example of that would be if we had, say, 2 or 3 wrestlers qualify for states. Well, then it would be this, and we wouldn't have to pay. So part of the problem is, I don't want to say it's a problem, it's just a current situation. Right now, if we have that scenario, we would pay formerly Brandywine, currently Christ Transportation, for the cost of the vehicle and the run, plus the cost of the driver, and oftentimes it's the cost of the driver to stay there. So this would, it would be our vehicle, it would be our coach or our teacher, doing that.
Are we doing then, I mean, I know when we hire people, we have to go through these, credit checks and things like that, but what happens if we have somebody who, how often, let me ask, how often do we do these credit checks?
By credit checks, you mean
Like background checks,
clearances?
or if someone has a violation, like a DUI or something, like, do we know these things and?
So every time at the point of hire, if an employee were to have one of those infractions, they have a set number of days to report it to us.
Okay.
If not, that's a dismissible offense. But also, every time we would want to give one of our employees authorization to drive one of these vehicles, it would go to our insurance company. I'm going to let you pick it up from there because there's certain things that we have to supply to the insurance company.
Yep, so we actually have to supply a copy of their driver's license and get them as an authorized driver of the vehicle. And what through talking from other school districts, what we would end up starting to do now is running a check on their driver's license as well. At that point in time, I think Greg had said last time it was like probably $10 to run that driver's license check on all of those driver's licenses. And that's where we're gonna really find out if they did have a DUI that didn't report it to us or whatnot. So yeah, we would run that.
Is my biggest concern is that, if we're just kind of giving the free reins for
No.
anyone and, maybe something happened 2 weeks ago, it didn't come up.
Right.
And here we are with somebody who is an alcoholic driving vehicles and things like that.
Yep, so we would run those checks.
One more quick one.
Yep.
The van or Traverse, whatever, was that replacing was it a 1980s Astro van that we currently have? Is that is that replacing that, or is that in addition to?
It would be in addition to.
Okay.
I think you're talking about the vehicle that our maintenance department uses.
Is that okay? Is that a separate animal?
Yes.
Yes.
Although it has served multiple functions over the past couple decades.
Yes, it does.
But I'm not recommending that we get rid of that van because it's still used as a maintenance van. And I think it's running actually pretty well. Mr. Durr, I'll look to you to comment on that.
Yeah, it's we did purchase from Brandywine as a used vehicle, and it was purchased primarily as a van for the maintenance guys to transport equipment and stuff like that. So there's nothing wrong with it. It wouldn't. It does only have maybe 2 seats in it or something like that. 2 seats with maybe a little jump seat behind there. I'm not sure exactly. Sometimes we take it out if we're transporting something big, but the Traverses would not be replacing it.
Gotcha.
Matt, what is your thinking about getting, the police car is one thing, but 2 Traverses, is the need that great that we would need 2 vehicles to move students around? And I believe me, I know all the scenarios that could occur. I'm thinking as a ex-wrestling coach, I had four kids left going to regionals or even states. The workouts that need to occur prior to even get to the event at different schools, because they all meet and work out together. So, I mean, that's just one scenario. I'm thinking the debate team goes scholastic scrimmage. I mean, it goes on and on and on.
So we looked at it, so yes, all that is accurate. But we also looked at it through the lens of, initially our thinking was one of these Chevy Express vans or something similar. Then when we dug into it more and we realized once you hit that 10 passenger
Yeah, that I
threshold
understand.
high,
But why the need for
So-
2 right out of the gate is
Why
what
not
I'm
just
asking.
the 8 passenger?
because what we realized is we have clubs, smaller clubs, but their membership is anywhere from like 5 to 10, 5
Right.
to 12. So an 8 passenger van is actually 7 passenger, but one's a driver,
Right,
right?
so-
So eight people van. Wouldn't be able to do one of those smaller, still a small club, if it only has 9, 10, 11, 12 people in it. Like we could have done if it was a van, but 2 vehicles would.
Yeah, you could transport the whole thing.
Yeah.
And we can do the whole club, or if there's a, more like the scenarios you described, where there's, you know, a handful of wrestlers, but then we also have, you know, something else going on more on the academic side
Right.
of a club at the same time, we could still transport up to 7 students in each vehicle plus a driver.
Do most schools in our area have more than one? I'm just looking for comparisons.
So
I know Parkland does. I mean, they
Well,
got 1,000 kids, but
I'm gonna
in
say-
a class. But
Most schools that operate their own transportation absolutely do. I don't know about the ones that have a transportation company like we do
Right.
with Christ Transportation.
okay.
Do we keep a log of how many times these vehicles
Yes.
are used? And is it possible to kind of get that log to see exactly?
Did you, last time you had given us an approximate cost for when we had
Yeah,
to pay?
based on what Greg and I had seen with how many times a bus went out for debate or scholastic
Yeah.
scrimmage or that kind of stuff. Yeah, so I don't have that number. I had a dollar amount of what it was that we spent on that. But I want to say, what, Greg, how many times does debate go out? How many times does scholastic scrimmage go out? Probably anywhere from 3 to 5 times a year.
I know debates going out 1, 2,
There you
3,
go.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. Well, once every month,
Yeah.
starting in November. I only know that because she just sent me
She
her
just sent you
schedule,
that.
but I brought it along.
But we have elementary scholastic scrimmage, we have high school scholastic scrimmage, you have,
So with the 2 vehicles, back to that, would you always have 2 drivers for that? Even if you have a group of 10 kids, but 1 advisor for that?
Sure, so that's
how would you work that through?
one of the, actually, that's one of the conversations we had, we had that exact same question. So part of that would be the expectation to these club advisors, if they're making such a request, they have to be able to say, and here's a second driver if needed. Otherwise, it wouldn't even make it through the field trip request process that we have in place. I don't, Greg, what is the cost? What's the cost for a vehicle, and then what's the cost for a driver? Like if we use Christ.
So I think currently off the top of my head, we're paying $2.36 per mile and $25.75 per hour for a driver. Those are field trip costs.
And that's regardless whether it's a full-size van, a cutaway, I'm sorry, a full-size bus, a cutaway, or
Yes.
the vans. Okay.
Yeah.
So if an advisor does not feel comfortable driving, does that exclude the club or group from going where they're going to go?
Possibly. We'd have to work through that.
Would we then end up going back to CRIS to then say, we need you guys now to transport because we don't have enough to transport? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, are we gonna end up back to that situation?
What I can tell you is past experience, and I don't know, I'll look to Greg to see if we ever had, or what's the frequency of an advisor requesting to go and then saying, but I don't want to drive.
So I've never had that request. I have, there for a while, there were several requests, I'm gonna say quite a few requests coming through from different coaches who wanted to drive their Group 2 events. So I've had, I've seen advisors wanting to do that. I've never seen any saying, well, I want to go, but I don't want to drive.
and when Brandywine used to allow us to do it, we never had that issue. In other words, like, when Brandywine would allow us to use the vans, the teachers always drove the vans.
Yeah. I know, I drove. And my own vehicle.
Yeah.
I'm more concerned if you
And
have
let the
a
kids
group
drive
of
their own
10
vehicles.
and you only have 1 advisor, and you need another driver, and you don't have another driver, you're back to going to Cries to say, we need you to transport because you have 11 people going. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, have we haven't been down this road, so we don't really know where we're gonna end up. I personally, I'm not ready to vote on this for the next board meeting. I would prefer to wait maybe another month and see what other things are gonna transpire with, you know, costs, other things that are gonna occur.
Would you be willing to vote on the police car, Natalie?
I think I would like to hold off on that as well for now. If we're gonna vote on the vehicles, I think we should just do it all together at once. But that's just my opinion.
Do we get a better group deal if we're getting?
Actually, that's something also we talked about. If we contact them and say, hey, listen, we're prepared to buy 3 vehicles, update your quote. We can turn that around probably by the end of the day tomorrow. I guess I'm looking for direction then from the board members on the committee, whether you want us to move one, you know, a police vehicle and 1 traverse, a police vehicle and 2 traverses, or nothing to the Monday night board meeting.
Do you know how many times that the vans may be needed, like in the next few weeks or so forth? Because I mean, you know what the clubs are and stuff. Can you let us know what the usage may be? You know what I'm saying?
Do you have that right now on that schedule?
I just didn't know.
Do you have to reach out to Cries right now for transportation for any of these groups?
I would have to go through the field trip request forms that have been submitted so far
Okay.
for this school year.
So you don't know if there's any coming up at this point, like in the next month or so?
Not off the top of my head, I can't.
That's okay.
Not anyone who's using a van
Okay.
that I'm aware of.
I just thought if we were gonna hold off on it, are we missing, you know,
Right.
are we keeping some kids from having
Good point.
something? That's why
That's a good
I'm
point.
just asking, only because,
Yeah.
you know, it's, the school year started, and so now more things are starting.
Of course.
That's all.
If that were the case, in that in between time, we would still work with Price.
You said that, or right now we have probably a deadline from, as far as when the bids can be, are good till, right?
Let me, wait, that's not.
Quote would have to expire
The
or
quotes,
something.
yeah, the quotes
Yeah.
have to be, you know, my point is, knowing vehicles, even looking at for myself, waiting a month or 2 may be very costly. Once the vehicles start going and being moved, even looking for a secondhand car, I'm paying as much for a secondhand car as I paid this year for a new car. You know, I'm afraid that we're not going to get the same quotes if we wait.
I'm looking to see if there's a quote is good for X number of days in here.
I looked through it and I couldn't find anything in the quote. But I think from our conversations, I remember 60 days. Most all the quotes are 60 days, but that's something we'd have to come back and we could share with you. I could find it out by tomorrow, but.
I know it's tough these days with the cars.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And so forth. I understand where you're coming from.
You can't get cars, you can't get parts.
You can't get
with what
nothing.
And I
happened was
totally
anyway done,
agree
it's
about
done.
going the route of, you know, if we're gonna go do this, I would definitely go with the 2023s and not the used. But again, and maybe I just need a little bit more feedback from some of the other situations that are potentially going on, which we haven't discussed yet. Just have seen from your updates some things that I'm prepared to hear some stuff about.
Greg, the other thing too is basically the quotes we have are in these vehicles. But if somebody else wants this vehicle before we want it, they can take that off.
Right.
And we're not guaranteed that vehicle to last.
No, we're
They're
not.
not gonna hold it for 60 days for us. is what I'm
They're not holding
So
any
we
vehicles
could lose
till
we could lose
commit.
if we don't bid on it or agree on it, right?
I can see your point, Natalie, about waiting maybe about the vans, but I personally would like to move ahead with the police car because I think that's something we need. We all understand the pressure that everybody's under there, and I would move ahead with that. And if there wants to be discussion on holding up on the other ones, you know, I could entertain that, but I wouldn't wanna.
I personally would go the other route and say I would prefer to get the Traverse for the drivers because we already have 2 police vehicles. So I feel like they can kind of work with what they have for now, and then we should work with the Cry situation where we're not paying for those things, and we had that vehicle for that purpose.
I guess I'm not hearing from administration that they're comfortable with 2 vehicles, and that's the reason I was looking for the third one.
Mr. Green, before, I believe Mr. Williams, did you have something?
I was just curious. Obviously, if the vehicles were obtained and they were on property, we would have the freedom, the district would have the freedom to use the vehicles, and they might be tapped on more often than scheduling a bus to go to events. I'm just curious what the turnaround would be, like how many years of having the Traverses, both of them, in use, would it take to equal to the amount of money that will be spent on bus transportation? Like how many years would it take for them to pay themselves off? Like if we're gonna buy them, if the district's gonna buy them and they're gonna sit and they're gonna get each one driven once every 2 weeks, then that may not be feasible to have them sit there as opposed to just using the bus transportation when it's needed.
I would say, I don't have that calculation in my head right now, but thank you. But we can figure that out based on, say, like the last 3 years average of times that we've rented vans from Christ. Or sometimes we actually go to Hertz.
Yes.
We go to Hertz and rent vans directly.
And those were the really costly ones.
Yes. So I think we could probably come up with an average of like the last 3 years, how much we spent on non-day-to-day transportation.
I was just curious because the bottom of the discussion is having our own vehicles to cut down expenses. I just wondered how many years on average, based on the current usage, that it would take for them to pay themselves. And I was also wondering, are only people that are on the payroll in the district going to be allowed to be signed up to drive these vehicles, or volunteers from the outside, as long as they pass the background check and they're signed up as a volunteer for a club, be able to drive the vehicles?
Yeah, so that would be an administrative regulation that we would have to put into place. So in other words, maybe.
Okay.
Would they be covered by our insurance stuff?
Yes, volunteers are. All volunteers are covered by our
Board
insurance.
board approved
Yes,
personnel.
board
approved personnel,
right,
yeah.
correct.
Okay.
I gotta go, okay?
Thank you.
The other one that we're not really taking into consideration right now too is the fact that we also pay mileage to a lot of our teachers who go on field trip or go on like conferences together that they can now ride together, use our van. We're not reimbursing them because the mileage is on our vehicle now. So that's taking all that into consideration too, where you would use that van for that.
There seems to be some differences of opinion here, okay? And I think the purpose of the committee meeting is to hash that out. I think there's been some good questions asked as to the cost, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't see a reason why that wouldn't be available by Monday night. What I might suggest, once again, is put it on the agenda, and we can't vote here, we can only voice our opinion. Put it on the agenda as separate items, and if 5 members say yes, we move ahead. If 5 members say no, it doesn't happen.
We have a committee chairperson though, but I think Robin should take that lead.
Okay. I'm just voicing my opinion.
After everybody offered their opinion. So I would say that the first part, and I'll go through this. Well, first I said actually go, how many board members would like to delay it until next month? Or you didn't even say how long. You said just delay it.
I basically just for this board meeting, the next,
For the next
I would
board
rather
meeting.
vote on it in the next one, not the next one, the one after.
Okay. I just spoke to Donna before she went out and asked what her opinion was. And she doesn't want to delay it any. So I'll go to the next board member.
I voiced my opinion. I would have them on Monday night's agenda, and then we can vote yea or nay, and get that for whatever.
I'm not opposed to them, but I would, I think I'm all right delaying to get the more information that we all requested.
The concern I have is if you're allowing employees to use personal vehicles, even though they're covered by our insurance, you then have to worry about the upkeep and the maintenance that they're doing on their personal vehicles. This would take that away, that would take one issue off the table if we had our own vehicles. So I would be okay with voting on Monday.
Yeah, I agree with Matt. I think they need to be on the agenda and let us vote on it.
And up or down, get it over with.
Because then we could argue it out here and it's not gonna go anywhere.
Well, I agree too that we should at least move on well, I agree too that we should not delay it. So we're gonna go to the used police cars from Rancho to 33,000.
No.
Does anybody want that?
No, he's just going down the line.
We're going down the line.
Yep, gotcha,
Okay,
thank you.
okay. Sorry.
Matt?
No, I don't want to see that on the agenda.
Ted?
No. Might be something we all agree on.
Me and myself. Bob? Okay, CoStar police quote for the 40,750 to 2023 with the outfitting.
Yep.
Matt, yes. Chad?
I'd like to see more information first.
Okay. Jason, Alan?
For it to go to the agenda for the board, that's the one I would choose. I'm not sure that I'm ready to vote on it yet, but that would be the one if.
Thank you. Rhonda?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Gary?
I'm okay with the diverses. I'm not sure I don't think we're even looking at the CoStar 10 passenger because that's really kind of out. That would require different licensure and so forth. So we really weren't looking. I would like it all to be on. I would like it all to be on the agenda that we want.
Yes. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be here. I'm out of town on Monday. But I'd like to see them all on the agenda, and I would say
Like to
yes
see
for all
all
of
of
them.
them.
Yeah.
And I'm for the police car as well. All right.
Have you addressed did you say the transverse, the 32,000 for the eight passenger?
I didn't get to that.
Oh,
I'll go
okay.
line item.
Okay, sorry.
Then the 10 passenger, 2024 for 55,341. Matt?
We're saying no to that.
You know my vote, yes, put them all three on the agenda. That-
All three?
Yeah, but not the Chevy Express.
Rhonda?
No.
I would like more information on that as well. But the CoStar 8 passenger,
Yes.
I think I can understand one. I'm on the fence about two.
If anything, I would say one, but I'm not sure I'm prepared to vote for any, but to move it over, yes, go ahead. One, I would be okay with.
Rhonda?
I'm okay, but I still would like to see the information that's been requested
That's
from
correct.
Greg, yes.
Gary?
I mean, yes.
Yeah, I'd like to also see that information. So it looks like we're gonna get at least a police car on the agenda?
That's what I'm hearing, yep.
I guess all three.
Yeah, and the 8
For the 8 passenger Traverse. Would you like me to list it as 1 or list it as 2? Knowing that even as long as it's on the agenda, if it's at 2, somebody could make a motion to say do 1. If it's at 1, somebody can make a motion to do 2.
That's at least on the agenda.
Put it on.
Or it could just be no, to any of them for that. So.
That's fair.
So list two and then we can say.
Okay.
That's fair.
Okay, I have the direction I need for for those vehicles then. Thank you for that conversation.
Before you go on,
I'd rather say this now than say this at the school board meeting. Just trying to figure out how to word this, but I'm kind of concerned with the idea that if a teacher who's been hired to teach has concerns about driving their group to an event, if that group cannot go because the teacher does not feel comfortable with that. I'd like you to really rethink that, because that's putting an added burden on the teachers, which I think is not fair. The second thing is, this is the first time I've heard that an advisor or teacher who would be driving, the district would be running a check on their driver's license, which I just texted PSEA to find out where they stand on that. I don't know.
Many school districts do it.
Okay,
Yeah,
just
they all do
kind
it.
of voicing that concern.
Yeah. they all
Because that's
do it.
something new that we haven't done before.
Right.
So,
Mr. Weber, I don't, obviously, like if a teacher got a trip and let's say that teacher didn't want to drive, but we had a different teacher or a different advisor that wanted to, is that something that,
So
try
go
to
back-
stay flexible, so,
To go back to my original answer is possibly. We don't know. We have to work through each request individually. Ultimately, the answer could be, well, then we can't go. That's not going to be where we start, which is why I said possibly.
which is kind of like where Natalie was going, like if that's a possibility with what Mr. Weber's saying, then do we need to? You know, if there's that many teachers that don't want to do it, which that's their right, nothing wrong with that. You know, but we don't want to withhold the trip
right,
if, you know.
right.
Sure.
And put that on the teacher.
Right.
Correct.
They just might not feel comfortable with all those people in a vehicle
Right,
and their
to
lives
drive.
are in their hands at that point.
Right.
I get it.
Yeah. I can understand that too.
Okay, so we will put on the agenda one police vehicle. I'm going to put on 2 traverses, knowing that as long as it's on the agenda, it can be all. Somebody can make a motion to,
Right.
you know, or everybody can just vote no, or everybody, yeah. So,
Okay.
You're gonna put it on as 2,
2.
because it's spending money and that has to be announced before the meeting. You can't go from 1 to 2, because you go from 2 to 1.
Yeah, that's the way we
Okay. Mr. Durr, AED.
The next agenda item, we're required annually to service our AED machines. Our past agreement with school health to service these pieces of equipment, it's expired, or we used our last site visit up this past February. So this agreement would be for this school year and the following school year. It covers the complete inspection of it and any of the consumables that would go with it. Batteries, pads, if it's going to expire, they just replace it. So it's $11,943.68. That's the total for 2 years. So it's about $6,000 per year to have them inspected, and it is something I budget for every single year.
How many units are on?
We have 14.
14?
14.
Greg, does that cover the cost of a replacement if you have to replace a unit?
Does
Does that
it
cover the cost of a replacement unit should you have to replace one?
covers the cost of the consumables?
Okay.
Pads, batteries, but if that machine would fail, so to speak, the entire machine is no good, it does not cover that.
Okay.
So that would be
Any-
times 3.
Any further questions?
I thought you meant that if it does fail, that they replace it.
they will replace all the consumables, your pads and batteries, if they're expired or about to expire. So it doesn't, I don't, if I said that, I'm sorry, that isn't what I meant. They only will replace batteries, pads, consumable parts that are used in it.
So we bought these?
They belong to us, yes.
Oh, okay. Thought they all-
Is that pretty much what you've been paying over the years, the 6,000 per year? Is that, or is there a significant increase over the past?
I think it is up, I'm gonna say, we paid $9,702 for the past 2 years. The cost is up, and one of the reasons was they gave us a different pricing schedule. They gave us, at the time they gave it to us, they gave us New Jersey pricing. They saw their mistake. We had already entered into the contract. They honored it, but they said next time you're going to get PA pricing, and so PA pricing is from $9,000 to $12,000.
Wow.
Are they a Jersey company or a PA company?
They're a national company. They're all over.
So it's okay we get that on the agenda?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Eric, you're quiet tonight, huh?
Yeah, for the first time since I'm here, I'll give everybody a break. I have nothing on my agenda. So unless, I'll open it up to questions, if anybody has any questions. But the year's been going well so far. But if anybody has any questions, I'll take any questions, but I don't have anything official to talk about.
You have the best report tonight, I like it.
Me too.
We'll close with
I
that.
concur.
Yeah, moving forward, we hope.
I'll approve that.
We'll pass it on to the finance.
You too.
Your line.
All right. All right, I guess I'll open up the finance and, Pat, who's taking that over?
So, on behalf of Mrs. Bonnick, on behalf of Mrs. Fink, I'd like to share out that, publicly share out that I had mentioned previously that we were scheduled for our kind of food services department audit this fall. Mrs. Bonnick worked with our liaison at the Department of Education and Department of Agriculture, and consensus was reached that it makes sense that we actually do the on-site part of the audit when they come to the district when Mrs. Fink has returned, since she is the one that would actually oversee anything moving forward. So now they're looking to do their on-site part of the visit like winter, early spring. And I think that's probably best for everyone. Mrs. Bonnick will continue to prep all of, the necessary documents and submit whatever she's able to submit for what they kind of call the desktop review, where they're not actually on site, but they're just reviewing more of like policy type stuff. So we, administratively, we deem that as good news. Okay. That's all I have for the cafeteria update. Okay, we'll move to the end of year local audit.
All right, so we had our end of year local audit last Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. The auditors did leave. Upon their leaving, they did come into my office. He said that there were just a few follow-up items that we still owe him. I actually got the list about 20 minutes ago. There's about 5 items. Should have them by the end of the week, and then we can finish up our audit. Preliminary is they didn't find anything that is substantial for reporting or anything. So it was a pretty good update again. Budget update. I know Dr. Link did put in the in his briefing to the board this week that the Act 1 index did come out last week. It is 5.3% for the state, and Northern Lehigh's adjusted index is 7.1. These are the highest percentages that have been since Act 1 went into place. So we haven't seen the ability to raise taxes to this amount since prior to Act 1. So just putting that on everybody's radar that that's where the current index is for this coming school year. Any questions about any of that? All right, so the last thing I have is Donna had actually asked me about investing in the general fund, bond proceeds, that kind of stuff. I do give every month in the board packet with the financial reports is our investment report. I just want to let everybody know that September, honestly, I can look it up here, September 14th, I did invest $8 million in a CD at Neff's Bank at 5.16%. It will mature in 7 months. We will realize roughly about $240,000 with that. Our baseball and softball complex, I had that money, bond money invested. When I invested that, we originally put down, we had like $2,007,000 in change. Right now, we're sitting in that fund $2,012,000, so about $4,000 up. However, I've already drawn $83,000 out of that. So we earned about $87,000 on interest on that money already to date, being at Pisloff. Overall, just so everybody knows, my general fund budget, when I built my budget this year, I had $250,000 worth of revenue in there for interest. As of the end of September, I already have $189,000 in interest earned already this year. So you add that 240 to that I'm going to get with this CD, plus the every month interest going from now through the end of the year, we're going to blow that revenue out of the water. So I just want you all to know that we're going to be seeing a lot more revenue and interest than what we actually had budgeted. Just not knowing where the feds were going with rates and everything, you just don't know. And they seem to be keeping it steady, status quo. So as long as that keeps up, we're going to keep earning money. So that's good.
Yeah, I've seen numbers 5.5, 5.7 even on
Yep.
CDs from local banks, yeah.
Yep. So.
CD numbers are good, every other number is not good.
Right.
Sure, true that.
And I don't know if you know the answer, I don't know the answer.
Sure.
My question goes back to the index.
Uh-huh.
The state you said is 5,
5.3, yep.
and they're saying that our district could be 7.
7.1 is our adjusted.
What happens if, let's just say, I'm not saying we're going 7, I'm gonna say, let's say we go to 3.
Mm-hmm.
Does that then affect the state's amount giving to us? Will they lower, in other words, if we don't at least show, I'm just thinking of future-wise.
Yeah.
If we don't, if we really come under the state, but, number.
Right.
Would the state then say, you know what, guys, I'm not gonna give you 5 then, because you're not willing to, I mean, does that happen? Could that happen?
Who knows what the state will ever do, because you don't know what the state will ever do.
But that's never happened.
But basically, right now, our funding is based on the basic ed funding formula. So depending upon what they throw into that funding formula, and what that funding formula looks like, there are a lot of hearings going on right now dealing with basic ed funding. Hannah Barrick just testified the other week in Hanover Township, I believe, Hanover, for the hearings against the basic ed funding, because they are trying to want to tweak that a little bit again. So she has been actively pursuing that, and all school boards, representation of all PA school boards.
So what you're asking is what we use for index this year, will that impact what we're allowable index for next year? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I don't know how they would do this. I mean, I just don't know if we do not show reasonable.
Good faith, right?
All right, good faith.
Well,
will they then turn around and penalize it in the sense that saying, okay, you're not going to get this much anymore. We're going to give it to Philadelphia. I mean,
right, exactly.
Is there anything that says that? I mean, if it doesn't, fine.
No, because
You don't know
what the Act 1 index is based on, that's based on SAW value and employees working and their value. So that's all a formula as well. As if that changes your Act 1 index. So that's why ACT index is increasing, because it's based on those, on that SAW formula, correct,
Okay.
that you use for, right, exactly.
So if we severely undershoot that, the state really can't penalize us.
Right, because it's based on a formula based
Well, that's kinda
on
what I was
workers.
saying.
Right.
Correct.
I was saying the same thing.
Now, the state can't penalize us, but now we could be behind the ball because.
Correct.
Well, yeah,
Just
Right.
you don't
Just
catch
because
up.
of inflation and.
Yeah.
all that
Correct.
good stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly,
Playing the balance game.
Yeah,
right,
you didn't
Right.
take that money when we had the opportunity, I'll say,
right.
to do that, so that's lost forever.
Right, so the PA just doesn't say, oh, you guys need, let's make a 5.3. There is a formula in the backside of that, how they come to that Act 1 index.
Understand.
But on the other hand, and I would add this, one of the arguments against increasing funding is the fact that school districts across the state of Pennsylvania have like $2 billion in fund balances, and the state's saying, we're not gonna give you any money as long as you have all that money sitting in your fund balance.
But yet that fund balance helps us if we need to
Exactly.
loan money or
Correct.
what our ratings are,
To
and
earn interest, to
so,
plan
Or in
ahead,
case,
yes,
the
yes.
state would never not pass a budget.
right,
It's a circular argument,
It
yeah.
would never
It's-
do that.
come on.
Yeah,
It would never
right.
do- it would
So
never do
the
that
only,
to us.
No.
so the only other thing I can say, Gary, is could the state say, we're not putting any more money into basic ed funding next year because they had a right to raise taxes and they chose not to, so therefore we're
Yeah.
flat
Yeah.
funding that
But
line
that would be up to
item?
the state to do it.
They
There's
could flat
There's
fund it.
nothing in anything that says, okay.
Right, there's nothing that says
concerned
every year we have to put more
If
money
that
into
ever happens,
basic
we're
ed
not the only
funding.
ones
That's
without
up to
power.
them if they
Correct.
decide to do that.
Yeah, I.
Correct.
okay, you answered my question, thank you.
yeah.
We'll be up the creek, but we'll have other people paddling.
Anything else for the Finance
PG
Committee?
Yeah. Well said.
Well, Mr. Crispin, you opened it?
You wanna close it?
All right, I guess I'll close it and send it over to extracurricular.
Me.
Miss
All right.
Snyder.
I'm going to open the extracurricular. Extra co-curricular. Who is taking over on this?
So I am going to cover for Mr. Geis this evening.
Okay.
He did ask me to share.
Sorry to interrupt you, Dr. Lingay.
This one's special for you.
I know.
Just read the notes.
Just read the note.
I understand. I'm just teasing you. So operations are going well with the new cashless payment system at the stadium for the concession stand. We have a dedicated credit card line, and we first used that at our home game on September 8th. I was there. I did see people in line. Last night I saw people in that line, and it was children. So somehow, mom or dad or guardian gave them access to a card or a device with a card loaded onto it. Mr. Hawes, thank you so much for being there that first night and being ready to troubleshoot any issues that came up. I don't think there were any glitches.
I use it Friday at the homecoming game. It's very easy to use. And the way the kids use it is they get Visa gift cards on games. And that's what they're using.
Thank you for clarifying that. And thank you for working the stand that evening as well.
It's fun.
Let's see here. So currently, Mr. Geis shared that it's about $1 credit card purchase for every $10 of traditional cash purpose. But he did share he's anticipating seeing that kind of level some. It's still a little bit of a novelty. Our plan moving forward is to continue to monitor it and the likelihood of increased credit card sales. If credit card sales do increase, we will expand to a second line and then possibly even just one window dedicated for credit card purchases. As an aside, Mr. Geis did share with me something that kind of caught him off guard. There was, I guess, a varsity soccer game going on. I don't know if it was boys or girls soccer. But the football team went, back into the field house. They had wrapped up their practice. They were leaving. A lot of kids, I guess, like myself, don't really carry cash anymore, but they did have their phones, which have like Apple Pay and stuff on that. So a bunch of the boys went over and they're like, I'll have 2 hot dogs and a soda because they were hungry after practice. So it was kind of that, the convenience of it there that they enjoyed, and they were able to quick grab a hot dog or a soft pretzel or something as they were leaving practice.
And we still offer cash too.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Good.
So just an update on that, and we'll continue to monitor that. Right now, I would say indicators are it was a good decision because it gives people another opportunity, another way to purchase something.
Is the thought process to eventually go cashless completely?
I don't know that we'll ever recommend going completely cashless.
Thank you.
It just because all we're doing then is removing an option, which could actually
Right.
decrease
Agreed.
revenue.
Right.
I
Yeah.
think for some older people too, they're not really savvy with the technology, and I
Right.
think we need to keep that option there for them.
Plus, I don't think the French fry stand is, honestly. I think that's only all cash.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
There's so much more people that are using Apple Pay though, and that makes it so much easier. I'm an old guy, I use Apple Pay, so.
Well,
you know.
I'm talking about like some of the people that really just don't have that.
Yeah.
You know, like grandma wants to go and
Right,
bring
right,
so
and I
to the
did see
game.
that in
and-
the game the other night.
Yeah,
so.
I just really feel like we need to have that option.
I will also share just similarly. I know I received an email from. It was a grandparent. I know that because they said they were a grandparent in the email that they wanted to attend their granddaughter's field hockey game, but they said you had to purchase tickets online, or they didn't have the capacity to. So I bounced that over to Mr. Geis. Mr. Geis personally called them and met him at the gate and said, "Don't worry, we're going to get you in. We'll take the cash payment." So the customer service will always be there. We're going to try to work with people and meet them where they are.
Good.
Okay, and Mr. Weber, again, thanks for the additional insight there. The next one was a question that actually came up at the last Community Relations Committee, but I didn't want to wait until November to get it out there. I did share this information with the school board. I did share it with Mrs. Williams, who brought the question forward. I'm not going to read through all of this, but this is the process, and it is linked into the agenda, and it'll be part of the minutes for the different award nights that are scheduled throughout the year. You'll see it's a bit of a jigsaw, a lot of moving parts to try to get the greatest number of people that want to be there, the ability to be there, but realize that we may not be able to accommodate every single person. And then matching that with like kind of the events that are coming or may have actually started up, like musicals and plays and stuff like that. So I just kind of wanted to bring this back to a public forum to say that this is the process for how the award nights are determined.
So we weren't able to shift anything around based on what I see there. It looks very complicated to even try, so.
It's a Tetris game.
Yeah.
We are administratively, we are not recommending that we change the dates.
Okay.
And Mrs. Williams, I hope that gives you a little bit more
Yeah, I
insight to the.
I even talked to Mr. Geis, and I understand where he's coming from. I worked on his job.
Thank
But
you.
I understand.
Okay. The next one actually has to do with, I had mentioned, I believe, last update that there's infiltration testing occurring on our current baseball softball complex. That is done. You may have seen the backhoe there. You may see there's still some dirt mounds that need to kind of settle and be worked back into the earth. And we are tentatively pleased with the results. And I say that because it still has to go back to the conservation office. But what we found was that the infiltration rates were better than expected. The decent infiltration rates were found 2 feet below the existing basin bottom. So although on top it's kind of compacted, once you get about 2 feet down, it drains naturally again, which is what we wanted to do. ELA Sport indicated this is the best case scenario, as it would only require some more dirt to be removed from the bottom of the existing pond. If needed, then also the pond could be expanded towards the east where good infiltration rates were discovered during testing. So in other words, there's our current basin. If we can't just kind of refurbish the soil that's in there, which is now a stronger possibility, if we need to expand it, we could go east towards the tennis courts. And the pits that were dug there, the infiltration results were actually the best. So if we needed to go east towards the tennis courts, we could. This, hopefully, if the Conservation Office agrees and approves, we would be able to avoid that kind of last cost measure where they have to do that controlled release from the ponds, which is then we're talking about significant engineering upgrades. So, you know, right now, Mr. Durr, Mr. Geis, and myself are pleased with the results that we got. I believe the next conversation, very near future, I think in the next week or two, ELA Sport will go back and meet with the Lehigh County Conservation Office. And then we'll have more direction to bring back to the board.
Okay. Anyone have any questions?
Good news.
Yes.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Tentatively
we
good
didn't hear
news.
from the conservation
Yes,
office yet.
exactly.
3 months ago, that's
Sure
for
did.
That's all I have.
All right,
Mrs. Snyder.
if anyone, no one has any further questions, we'll close up the extracurricular.
Thank you, everyone. Hope everyone has a good evening.
Me too. Thank you.
Thank you.